Hello, my darling listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Soul Sync podcast. Now, if you're watching this firstly on YouTube, you will notice there's been a few differences whereby I now record the intros on camera. So normally, if you do watch them on YouTube, you'll always notice that the intros are recorded separately. But now they're live. You can see me. Hello, if you're watching. Hello. How have I been? It's been a really busy week for me. I have really found myself in a mode at the moment where I'm just wanting to research, particularly subjects involving manifestation, the law of attraction, cosmic ordering, call it as you will. But I'm trying to manifest some things into my life at the moment. One being a partner, the right person, a soulmate. Very interesting. I'll let you know how I get on with that. And I've been using this opportunity to set lots of intentions because we're coming up on the 8th of August to something called the Lion's Gate Portal, which is it's a astrological time which is really good for letting go of things that no longer serve you, letting go of things in your life that you no longer want or need or are good for you, and about bringing new things into your life, setting intentions. And it's a great time for manifesting. I've been watching some really interesting things at the moment as well on the Gaia network, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, and I'm getting really into the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, who if you Google him, there is a video on YouTube which talks about how to attract what you want in life. And I've, over the years, studied the law of attraction and kind of cosmic ordering in great detail, but never before have I ever come across a video that explains it so well and so simply and actually brings science and spirituality into the picture and merges the two. So it's a really good video. I will put the link on the show notes for you. Now, in this episode today, we're going to be talking to Debs Kiely. And Debs was born in Derbyshire in England, and she is a spirit medium and psychic. She's also a really well-renowned tutor. And from her earliest memories, Debs has always had an awareness of the spirit world. She was often seeing spirits and sensing their presence from a really young age. And she's actually a self-taught medium even. And her story is really interesting. We talk a lot about developing one's mediumship. The conversation takes quite a few twists and turns. And I think if you're someone that's wanting to develop your intuition, you might be on a spiritual journey yourself or trying to deepen your connection with that of the spirit world, this is going to be a really good episode for you. So without further ado, I introduce to you my conversation with Debs Kiely. So Debs, firstly, a massive warm welcome onto the Soul Sync podcast.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for the invite. And of course, it's my pleasure to be here.
So I've been very excited to talk to you. And I'm sure we're going to have a really action-packed hour. Obviously, in the intro, I've just told people a bit about you, but tell us a bit about your background and how that's influenced your journey to where you are today. That's straight in with it, Debs. First question.
It's a huge question. I mean, which aspect of my background do you want to hear about?
Well, I guess what I want to hear about first of all is your experiences from your earliest memories, because from the notes that you gave me, you've had an awareness of the spirit world from a very young age. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I've always been aware of the spirit world, and I always believed that everybody else could see the people that I could see, that they could hear them. And then obviously as I got older, maybe around the age of sort of 5, 6, I realised then, of course, that other people couldn't see the children that I could see, or the people that I was aware of. And I very quickly realised it made me look weird or come across as weird to other people. And then really, I want to say from the age of perhaps 6, 7 upwards, I didn't see them objectively anymore, which means, as real as I'm seeing you. It then shifted and changed. So that became a lot more rare, although it did still occur throughout my teenage years. And I had many wonderful experiences with spirit growing up. And I think part of that was because My dad was in the military, so we moved every 2 years. It was just part of the job. So I was always the new kid. I was always the one that had to try and make friends somewhere or try and fit in somewhere. And I know now that the spirit world drew close to play with me, to bring me upliftment, to just bring me comfort, really. And I find it quite interesting that often when people sort of, hear that you're a medium, what have you, they begin to tell you their creepy, spooky stories, but actually people just fear what they don't understand. There's this misconception. I think Hollywood movies, and things like this, ghost stories really can feed into that fear. But it was as I then got older and understood more about the spirit world that I realized actually, they draw close to bring upliftment and so on. Yeah.
That's it, really interesting. So you were seeing them and having relationships, it sounds like. Was it the same spirit people that would come through when you was a child, or would it be different people?
It was always different people. So I remember my dad had been deployed somewhere, and as kids we had the opportunity to go away for this long weekend for activities for the children. And we stayed in this huge manor house, and we'd been doing whatever activities we'd been doing all day. And then it was time to go to bed, and I was sharing the room with one other girl. And I didn't know this girl. I'd met her that weekend, and the door opened and this other girl came in and she said, come on, we're going to play. And so, being a mischievous child, I went out into the hallway, and there was loads of other children in the hallway, and we were all running up and down and laughing. And we went to another floor of the building, and I became aware that one by one, the kids started disappearing. And I remember it so vividly, having the thought, well, where are the other children going? Because I didn't see them leave. And then eventually this member of staff approached, and there was a boy standing behind me. I remember him so clearly with his striped T-shirt. And the member of staff spoke directly to me, and she scolded me, get back in your room. You can't be running around in the halls. And I remember thinking that's profoundly unfair. And I toddled back to my room. And just before I got to the room, the boy was with me. And just as I got to the room, the boy had gone. And It was only as an adult that I realized they were spirit children, because they were so real to me, you see. I think what tickles me is that if there'd been CCTV, people wouldn't have seen on the camera all these other children that I could see. They've just seen me running up and down laughing like a weirdo. But
what did your parents say about all this at the time then? What was their reaction to you and the spirit world?
My parents were certainly not spiritualists. They were just mum and dad. I was very lucky in that my parents always believed me. They never said to me, don't be silly. They never said a load of nonsense. I remember being 14 and I remember laying in bed and hearing a man speak to me very, very clearly. And I was petrified. And I went down and told my dad, I can hear this voice in my room and he's talking to me. My dad came up to the room and sat down next to the bed, and there was nothing, not a peep. And then my dad left and the talk and the chatter began again. I couldn't see him, but I could hear him so clearly. But they always believed me. So I was lucky. I know that's not always the case with a lot of people.
So you had these experiences. Then you mentioned that kind of as you got into your teenage years, did they kind of follow you through, or how did it kind of sort of develop and unfold for you as you went into those kind of that confusing time of being a teenager?
Yeah. I think it's my belief that the spirit world comes knocking at our door, so to speak, to invite us to work alongside them. And we have free will whether we want to work alongside the spirit world. So I have these episodes very, very frequently throughout the whole of my life. And so therefore they were saying there's another world here. There are people here. We're knocking at your door. We have to get your attention somehow. And that's exactly what happened, So it wasn't like at 14 or at 10. It was consistent all the way through. It's just how I perceived them changed from being able to see them very objectively and very real to perhaps only hearing them. And there was only a few occasions thereafter where I could see spirit objectively as I'm seeing you now, but that's what they did. They came knocking at the door to get my attention. You are a medium, we'd like to do something with you, possibly, see what we can do together.
Why did you stop seeing them? Is there no kind of reason or logic, or was that meant to be the case? Was that there to perhaps help you with your mediumship? Because it sounded like it was all coming to you too easily in the younger years.
It's very common, and it's my personal belief that we know, if we look at psychology and the developmental stages of a child, when a child is very, very young, typically up to the age of 6, not exclusively, but typically, a child is going through the world and learning about the world with their subconscious mind at the forefront, their instincts, and they soak up everything like a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
And then around the age of 6, what happens is their logical, analytical part of the mind begins to develop. So what that means to us is that they begin to question things. They begin to take on the views of people around them a lot more. They might become more critical thinkers. So that aspect of the mediumship that can be so natural in the beginning to change and move in a different way. And that's, if we think of children who had that invisible friend and they get to a certain age, that invisible friend is gone. So we can think of spirit people. It's just developmental stages of the mind and sociological factors that can then change that. I hope that's made sense.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. So what age did you start doing readings for other people? When did you start using your mediumship in that regard?
Yeah, my late 20s. I'm in my 40s now, but in my late 20s, but only sort of having a play with cards, nothing serious. And then what happened further along is that I'd gone to this lady for a tarot reading, this fellow British woman living abroad, and I'd heard she was fabulous, and she was fabulous. And she ran a group where people could go and learn to meditate and learn to do tarot. Debs, you really ought to come along. You've got the gift. And I thought, And I decided to go along because I wanted to learn to be in control of what was taking place. I wanted to learn, believe it or not, to switch it off.
Oh.
To not, to be more in control and switch it off. And what I found was when I went there, I learned to read tarot properly. And then what happened is I would offer tarot readings at home, and someone from the spirit world would join me, and I would literally just describe what I'd been told, what I heard, what I saw, or what I knew. And that's how that then began, that I started offering evidential mediumship readings. It was a very natural progression where I literally just described what I was told. It was an evolution in that way.
It's interesting. So you started doing that. Why was you trying to shut it out? Was it sort of? It sounds like it was a bit out of control. What was going on for you to want to shut it down?
Because I didn't understand what was taking place.
Oh, okay.
There were times where I didn't want to hear a voice talking to me because we fear what we don't understand. That's all it was, and I didn't understand it. And so I wanted to learn to be in control. I wanted to learn to be able to switch it off at the appropriate times and to be able to switch it on at will, if that was even possible, was my thought, And so I thought, why not go along with an open mind and just see if this lady can help me? But she didn't really instruct or teach mediumship. What she taught was very much the psychic faculty. But I'm very grateful to her because off the back of that, my mediumship really then opened up, and then the journey began of learning how to switch it on and switch it off, so to speak. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Obviously, you've had, like we all do, challenges along the way. But is there kind of, do you have memories of challenges, obstacles that have tested your faith or belief in the spirit world over a period of time?
No.
No. Oh, that's interesting.
Absolutely not. What I would say is, for me personally, I can only, speak from my own experiences.
Yes.
As a spiritualist, it's my belief system. And I was born into a family where they were of a different religious belief, not my parents, but my grandparents. And so for me, I think the challenge was when it came to my faith is looking at, well, what do I believe? What is my belief system? Who is this divine spirit everybody's talking about? And over time, learning to, or discovering my relationship to God, if you will, or the great spirit, however you want to put it. That for me was a real journey in moving away from these indoctrinated thoughts to, which never sat right with me personally anyway, to, well, what do I believe? What does sit right for me? That was a real quest, real inner journey, you know.
So I want to kind of delve into your kind of mediumship in more detail, because a lot of I'm not going to say aspiring mediums, but a lot of people who are trying to develop do listen to this podcast. I want to go into kind of the interconnectedness or unity in the world around you, and how does that sort of influence your mediumship? The interconnectedness of the world. How do you sort of see that this is all fixed together? If that's the right question, if that makes sense.
If I've understood you correctly, Jason, do you mean when working with a spirit communicator, how that blending and that bond with them?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well,
I've asked that in a really backwards way, but yes, thank you for interpreting it in that way.
The spirit world's all around us. You know, I think maybe there can be this idea sometimes that the spirit world is far away and they're hard to reach, but actually we are a world within a world. The spirit world, we are already within the spirit world, and then the spirit world's already all around us. So for me, it's the idea of reaching my mind out to them. My mind simply goes to them, and that's where I would hold the concentration. It's not this feeling of, I wait for them to come to me and, you know, and this feeling of, oh, they're far away. They're not, they're very, very close. And my mind goes to them, and that's where we listen, you know.
So when you, because I'll go straight in with some of the challenges that I encounter, because I'm sure they're very similar to some of the challenges that other people listening to this encounter. My problem is a lot of the time I don't feel that I could even feel spirit around me, but and I'm still on this bloody battle of being able to try and get myself into the right zone. So I want to unpack some of your advice, because obviously you go all around the world teaching people. Let's start from someone wants to feel spirit around them. What would you say is the first steps of getting to that point?
I think the first thing is to sit in the still. What I find is that people often want to rush their development.
Mm-hmm.
How can I get names? Names is just another piece of evidence. You know, how can I get this? How can I get that? To almost want to rush through it. And the development of mediumship cannot be rushed. It's just the nature of it. To have the patience and to sit in the stillness and to first become aware of our own energy, to feel, what does my aura feel like? What does my natural energy and my power feel like? Who am I? And then to distinguish the difference of becoming aware of the power, the energy, the frequency, if you will, of the spirit world around us. And then to practice perhaps with, you know, volunteers in the spirit world. Draw close. Let me feel your presence. What does that feel like? There are things that can't be rushed if we're really wanting to feel the spirit world, you know, not just listen to them, but really feel that closeness with them.
When students are coming to you, what are the biggest, challenges people tend to face, or preconceptions people have? Because I always think mediumship is a very, very, very hard thing to teach, because it's, in my experience, it's so personal. It's very different for everyone, and you're trying to teach something that really you're using a lot of analogies, and it to me. I understand when you actually strip it back, it's very simple. Sit in the stillness. That is so simple, but it's not simple. It's really hard because of the human ego system that we have that just seems to get in the way of so much. What do you find? What's your experiences of, teaching this?
I think it's imperative that when working with somebody, that we do look at them as an individual. What will work for one person won't work for another. And it's looking at what do they need in their toolbox to help them. Often I find the biggest challenges is not the spirit world in how they're perhaps working with the medium, but it's the medium trusting what they're getting. As the top of the bill is, how do I trust? How do I know? I think the other thing is, which you said, Jason, this being in the still, and it's very, very difficult. And that's another challenge for everybody, is to learn to hold that concentration, to hold it there with the spirit communicator. And that's practice, because we're asking our brains to do something that it might not be used to doing. In my everyday life, I have a butterfly mind, and I have to write everything down, otherwise I'll forget it within 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm exactly the same. Yes.
Big note taker, and, working off lists and things. But it's just practice, holding that concentration with them. That's the thing I find that a lot of students work on. And also understanding that evidence isn't random. This idea to fire off one piece of evidence and another piece of evidence and another piece of evidence, when in actual fact, the people in spirit have come to talk to loved ones here. I refer to it as a conversation. That's my thing, where one is the talker, which is the person in spirit, and the person here is the listener. And that's the job of the medium, truly, to let two people that love each other have that conversation. It's not about the medium.
No, it's not. But quite often it seems to become about the medium, doesn't it? I guess, we can sort of talk. I want to come back to the medium's toolbox. I want to know what else is in the toolbox. But before
we got,
we're not limited to any time. It's really, how long can you keep going for, Debs? Really, it's more a test of your stamina than anything else. So you were just, what was you just saying? I've just lost my trail of thought. Being silly, making jokes.
Yeah,
you were saying. Sorry, go on. What was you just reverse back a bit, because I had a question off the back of it and now I've lost my trail of thought. This happens a lot on the Soul Sync. Don't worry. This is a regular occurrence.
I can relate, Jason. Honestly, I can relate. And we were talking about that. I like the idea personally. It's just my thing of that it's a conversation.
Oh,
the
yes.
person in spirit is the talker. The person here is the listener. Not that that's misunderstood. It doesn't become a conversation with the medium. That's not what I mean. But these are still people. These are you and I when we're dead, coming to talk to family and best friends.
Yeah.
But we need the evidence. We need to prove survival. We need to prove that people retain their personality, that they can evolve in spirit, that the spirit world can evoke people's faith, power, understanding that actually we as people on earth are not just skin and bone. We are so much more than that. That's what mediumship can do, but essentially, for me, it's about being the voice for the person in spirit that's wanting to have a conversation with a loved one or their best mate,
what you were saying about serving spirit, I think that I've come across, I think, a lot of mediums, because I think a lot of mediums get people looking up to them almost like God, that you've got this kind of belief system. You've got this gift, but you're the only person that can communicate with the other side. And I've noticed as well that, some mediums, it becomes less about the spirit person and more about them. And I think sometimes it's, mediumship isn't always, perhaps practiced in the right way. To go back to the toolbox then, because I think that was a great analogy. What should a medium's toolbox look like, or what should it contain? Or is there any guidance you can give us in that regard?
I think to do this vocation, I I think it's firstly the understanding that it is a vocation. It's not a change of career.
Hmm.
It's not one day I wake up and I want to do this, full time. It's, I think, firstly, looking at it with the reverence it deserves and the understanding of what it is that we're doing is so precious. I think that will help the individual go a very, very long way. I think patience. Listen, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I never used to. I've learned to be more patient, but patience and kindness to self when developing. To not always criticize self, but to think, okay, what went well there? What would I do differently next time? And why? And to understand that development is ongoing for those that want to push themselves further. Trust. Trust the spirit world and to trust ourselves. And if something's incorrect, then it's incorrect. It's not the end of the world. That mediumship can be experimental. We can't compare ourselves to other people. We're unique. How this world works with us is unique. And how we work is always going to be unique because we're individuals.
Yeah.
But that said, going back to what you said a moment ago, Jason, is I think as mediums, we're not a unique group because, again, it's a personal belief of mine. I believe the spirit world, people in the spirit world work with many people here on earth. They may not be aware of it. So if you think of carers, doctors, nurses, maybe foster parents, people that work to help other people in some way, that thought pops in their mind. Who's to say it isn't from the spirit world, an inspiration to help them? I don't think we're a unique club. I think there are many, many people that are possibly working alongside the spirit world. They wouldn't call themselves a medium. Perhaps they wouldn't even know. But, the spirit was able to influence their mind in some way.
Yeah, I've only just started to realise, I think, even myself, that I've been using psychic skills for a very, very, very long time without realising I was using them. I built a multi-million-pound recruitment agency through being able to read people, and then it only came as a surprise to me. And I thought, how have I done this? And I thought, well, it's because you can just sense things. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm a psychic. I've been doing this for years, just without even realising it.
Yeah.
When I guess I want to, because there's a lot of. I get a lot of questions from people about the spirit world, and I just want to ask some questions about. So when we pass over, we go to the spirit world, but then obviously we will have a reincarnation at some point.
I think they're personal beliefs.
Oh, you.
That's what I love about spiritualism. There is no dogma, there are no rules or creed. Everyone can make up their own mind about that. So I have friends that absolutely believe in reincarnation, and then I have friends that say absolutely not.
What do you believe in?
I used to believe in reincarnation, and then I didn't. And at the moment, I'm back on the fence again. What I don't believe, it's just my personal belief. I don't believe that we go to the spirit world and we would reincarnate immediately. That doesn't sit right with me personally. It's just a thing. Because can you imagine then you and I, Jason, we go to the spirit world, we're looking forward to seeing our parents. No, sorry, they're reincarnated. You're going to have to wait, another 80, 90 years. Perhaps.
That would be a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah, exactly. You want that welcoming committee as you go to the spirit world. And I haven't received anything personally from the spirit world that tells me there is such a thing as reincarnation. Not yet. I'm on the fence. I'm open-minded.
I think my belief is similar. I do believe in reincarnation, but I don't, like you, I don't think it's an instant thing. This is where we start getting really deep into beliefs. I think that you have to stay up there a few generations, is my belief, before you are given the opportunity to reincarnate. But, we won't go down that rabbit hole. Obviously, you've had a lot of moments throughout your kind of career as such But can you tell us about any perhaps profound moments of awe or wonder that you've had in regards to something sacred or divine? Any experiences which really made you go, oh, you know?
Oh, there's quite a few coming to mind, but the first one that came back to my memory was I'm also a physical medium,
Mm-hmm.
and I would sit. I had a circle, and we would sit weekly. It's when I was living in Cambridgeshire, and we would sit in the dark and with the red light. But that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to have to sit with the theatre of the red light and in the dark. And we were very lucky in that we had phenomena from the off. And what happened was we were having tea and biscuits afterwards. And I said to the two guys that would sit for me weekly, I said, I said, if we can't do this in the light, I wouldn't want to do this. And as I said that, they said, oh my goodness. There was absolute transfiguration on my face of an old man with a big beard, big grey beard. This is with the lights on, in the light as you're seeing it now. And I got up and I walked across to the mirror and I saw it myself. And it was very much a personal experience of it, but I was just in utter shock. I wasn't looking at myself. It was completely looking at the face of an old man, and not just a little bit, like full on. And that was really like, wow, the physical mediumship can be done in the light. And it was just, that was one of those moments that took my breath away.
Wow. I bet it did, looking in the mirror and looking back at you was a man.
That was really profound. Yeah, that was a profound experience. Another time when I was married to my ex-husband, and his mum and his stepdad were in the back, and we were in the south of Germany driving through the mountains, if you will, not mountains, but, we're coming down this massive steep hill, and it had hairpin bends with huge pine trees. And it was a lovely sunny day. And as I was driving down, I could see a man staring at me through the pine trees. And I said to everybody in the car, can you see him as well? And they said, yes. They said, yes. We're in the middle of nowhere. And this guy's just standing there staring at me. And as we came around this hairpin bend, all of a sudden I had no brakes on the car. And what I mean was, it's not like in the movies where the pedal was going up and down. It was like pushing against lead. And luckily, I was only sort of in second gear. And I said to my ex-husband, oh my God, I've got no brakes. And I just went down to first gear. And then I just literally very, very slowly went down this small mountain. And we were very lucky as we came down at the bottom, there was a garage, and the guy had a look. And what had happened is something to do with the brakes, the clip had come undone. And that's why I didn't have any brakes. But that man there that we all saw in the middle of nowhere, sort of saying, slow down, be careful here, that stayed with me. How beautiful is that?
My goodness.
So,
I love these stories.
it's amazing. It's wonderful.
So moving on then to, like I said earlier, there's lots of mediums and developing mediums who listen to this. So I want to try and get into this next part with you, advice and pearls of wisdom and things that you have learned over the years about your mediumship that you can share with all of the lovely listeners here, because I think that, you've got so much experience and wisdom, and we want to try and unpack some of that, Debs.
Where do I begin? I have different tutors. Have different tutors. You'll take bits and pieces from everybody, experiment with it, make your own mind up. I always refer to it as a buffet. So if you imagine you're going up to a buffet with your plate, if you like what's being taught, pop it on your plate. If it doesn't sit right with you, it's okay to leave it. It's to find out what's working for us, because what will work for one person might not work for another person, but at least give it a go, at least try it. Again, it goes back to the biggest thing is just trust the journey. I know I keep coming back to this, but trust the journey. Trust that spirit has a plan for you. The other thing I would say is be open-minded. So someone might think, oh, I'd love to be an evidential medium and give one-to-one readings. Maybe that's my thing. But maybe they would be a phenomenal healer. or a great trance healer or a phenomenal, spirit artist, to be open-minded and try different things throughout this journey.
Mm.
To also remember there is no end goal. It's not like
Yeah.
patience, it's like, yay, nailed it. It's not like that. It's ongoing. It's ongoing. To understand it's an ongoing journey.
It
Yeah.
is. And I think when even I fell down this trap when I first managed to get, well, people have heard this story before, but the first time I went to the Arthur Findlay College, I only went there with wanting to know one thing, that the spirit world is real. And to say they gave me a carrot, honestly, it was just like flicking a switch on. It just kept coming to me, easy as anything. So then I left the college, didn't really know what to do with this, and then I couldn't replicate it ever again. But it's that, I thought it was easy. I thought it was easy to just go, God, I'm getting readings, no problem. But it is, you have to go away and really develop. And I think my journey, I at times, I will have moments of, okay, yes, the spirit was absolutely real. I can feel it. Da, da, da. And then I'll have moments of going, am I just making all of this up? Is it? Because, and I'm still going through this process of going, well, why can't I feel them now? Where are they? But it's a funny old journey, and but I keep finding myself drawn back to it again, and I just can't. You know when you get that feeling, I'm just being pulled back to it all the time because
That's on a soul.
it's annoying me. It is actually annoying me because I am like that when I try to do something and I just can't seem to master it. I'm very stubborn, and the hardest thing for me has been meditation. At the very start when I started it, I was sitting on a cushion trying to sit upright, going, no, nothing's happening. And it's taken me a long time to work out, actually, having an ADHD brain, just how to actually meditate properly. That in itself has been hard.
I understand. I've got ADHD too.
Oh, tell us.
I understand you.
How do you meditate? What's your technique?
I used to really, really struggle to sit in power. And what I used to do, going back to when I was learning to sit in the power, which I thought back then was meditation. I didn't know there was a difference back then. Like I said, I didn't have a tutor or a teacher or anything. I used to set a timer. It was such a struggle for me. And I think people can go for a walk and feel the closeness of spirit. People can do gardening and feel the closeness of spirit. And we don't have to sit necessarily with our eyes closed. If someone can do that and achieve that, great. So the way I personally feel about it, I'm about quality over quantity. So I'm going to sit with them for 5 minutes. Why does it have to be an hour?
Yeah, and
I couldn't manage an hour.
I struggle with 20 minutes. And what recently I've come to realize that apparently there is 111 techniques to meditate, and people with ADHD, what you have, this is my understanding, but you have to, what we're trying to do is to tell our brain, shh, be quiet, just quiet down. Actually, that's the wrong thing to do. The right thing to do is to actually, so this is what I do now. I will go into like a coffee shop or sit by my, in my room where I do my meditation, and I will listen intently to every single sound. So every car that goes by, and I try to listen to like 3 different sounds in a second. And then after about 3 minutes, I'm exhausted with it. Then I just say, right, now I'm going to be quiet and do my meditation. Then because I've exhausted my mind, my only 2 options I give my mind is listen to every sound and pay attention to everything, or meditate. And after 3 minutes of doing that, I'm exhausted, and then I can go into it.
We can't ask our brains to go blank. It's not. It's a computer that's constantly, if you compare it to a computer that's constantly running, is to give it a focal point. So to give it something to concentrate on. For some people, it might be thinking of a candle. That didn't work for me. I tried all that. What worked for me was focusing on energy just outside of the body or around the face. but to feel it and keep my concentration there. What do I feel? To give the mind something to do. And then if the
Mm.
mind drifts off, which it's going to do, it's okay. Just bring it back again. To give
And I
it.
suppose by paying attention to the energy around you, that in itself is putting you in the right um, zone to feel the spirit people, I guess.
That's absolutely right. Yep. That's where you're beginning to learn to feel energy, sense energy. What do I feel? What am I aware of?
Mm. Is there a particular mentor or person that's kind of inspired your journey over the years in your development?
Yeah, so when I was living in Germany, I didn't really know, you could do courses on this and things like this. By now, I'd heard about the Arthur Findlay College. I had heard there's somewhere people can go, and I'd signed up for this mentorship scheme, this 2-year mentorship scheme, knowing we were moving back to UK. Moved back to UK, and I think something like 8 months later, this mentorship scheme began, and that was with Minister Simon Key. And I remember on the first day sitting there, and I found out that it was for accreditations. I didn't know you could do accreditations. I didn't know. And it was a bit like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. You see, the spirit world was sneaky, because if I'd have known it was for accreditations, I wouldn't have gone. I somehow didn't register that anywhere in my mind, But I must say I learned so much from Simone. Particularly, for the philosophy and the public speaking aspect of it and so on. Yes, very grateful.
Is there any kind of books that you've read over the years, or podcasts, or any recommendations, things that have shaped your journey, or you've read them and gone, my goodness, that was a good read?
I think for beginners, is it Gordon Smith? I don't know if I quoted that correctly. The Psychic Barber.
Mm-hmm.
That there's some really good exercises in that book. I think if people are wanting to understand spiritualism or the spirit world better, when they're looking to philosophy to get perhaps a bigger understanding of it, any of the Silver Birch books that have
I
been
keep seeing those,
brilliant.
but yeah, I do. Every time I go to the college, I see all those Silver Birch books, but I keep looking at them, but I've never actually picked one up. But I keep thinking, what are they? I don't really know what Silver Birch is yet.
Yeah. So Silver Birch was it was actually many minds in the spirit world that spoke through this spirit body, if you will, and through the medium who was called Maurice Barbanel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fantastic. I mean, Maurice Barbanel was a journalist for one of the top UK newspapers at the time, and he'd gone to investigate this so-called spiritualism, was a non-believer, didn't have any, belief in anything, went along, and then one day he fell asleep. And when he woke up, he apologized to the group. I'm so sorry, I fell asleep. And unbeknown to him, the spirit world had spoken through him with trance control speaking, and that's where that began. And when the circle had asked, well, what's your name? The voice said, does it matter? And there was a silver birch tree outside, and the voice said, just call me Silver Birch. But Silver Birch was actually great minds in the spirit world coming together, speaking through the medium of Maurice Barbanel. And it was, I've really enjoyed those books. I really have. And you can dive into them time and time again. It's fascinating read.
I'll make sure I go and have a look at those. They jumped out at me, but as you can probably see, I've got enough books. I've got books after books after, and I've actually now made a rule on myself. I'm not buying any more books until I have read a large amount of the ones I've already got, because I'm running out of storage room for them. What do you think the future of kind of mediumship spirituality is looking like in the world we live in now then? What do you think do you think we're waking up more to this, or do you think we're becoming much further disengaged from the world around us?
I think both. I know that's a bit contradictory, but I think both. I think on one hand, we're living in a world where materialism seems to be outweighing spirituality, if you will. So irregardless of what belief that person holds and so on, we seem to be bombarded with it, whether we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, any form of social media, materialism, look like this, live like this, eat like this, do this. And for me, I believe spiritualism for me is the counterbalance to materialism. It's that part of us that is the soul and the spirit. I think with the internet, the birth of the internet, it's been a fantastic tool, but I think also it's really fed that machine of consumerism even more, and materialism. So there's that, coupled with the mental health crisis, that everybody seems to, many countries are going through at the moment. On the other hand, because of this, the other side of that coin is people are stopping and saying, hang on a minute, life's too fast. It's become quite trendy to go away and go on a retreat somewhere, to go away on some meditative retreat for a week. People are looking for that solace. People are looking for something outside of the rat race and the busy world we're living in. It is kind of catch 22.
It is. There's pros and there's cons, but I guess to the internet. But I think people are becoming aware that, the world we're living in now is not necessarily a healthy one, and you have to have quite strict boundaries with yourself, because even I find myself guilty of it. I think to myself, Jason, get off your bloody mobile phone. You're glued to it, man. What are you doing? So even I'm, very aware of it. And actually, I do think that I think more and more people are going to start waking up more spiritually, because I think we're getting to a point, I think, where I think there's going to be a catalyst. A lot of people are starting to go, hang on a minute, this world, the way we're communicating with each other and stuff, it isn't fulfilling me. I actually think that's why there is such a mental health crisis. I think funding is one issue, but I think another big issue is people are just, wondering what the hell is this world all about? Where are we going? What are we doing? So yes, well, Debs, I always ask guests this, and I do have a habit of putting people on the spot, but I always ask guests for a final kind of anecdote, a bit of wisdom, a final thought, or something that you can leave us on today.
Don't compare yourself to others. You can't compare yourself to others. You were never meant to be like other people. You was always meant to be you. That includes your mediumship, that includes your personal beliefs, that includes where you think you might want to go. Be open-minded and curious about where this journey is going to take you, both in life and when looking at spirituality or spiritualism. Try and trust the process. If you feel you got it wrong, give yourself a break. You was never meant to be perfect. We're all just here learning and fumbling our way through. Enjoy the process. Try and enjoy the process, which means look at it. What can I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? And please don't forget to ask yourself, and what went well and what did I do right?
Yes, I think that's a really good point. I've been terrible at times comparing myself to other people in their mediumship development. And that person knows their guy, but I don't know my dad, and this person's done this and I can't do that. And you just get lost in it. And sometimes I am, even myself, I can relate to that, because I find myself going down rabbit holes where I'll definitely focus on the things that I'm not doing so well rather than the things I do. I actually made this rule with myself, and I said, because I give myself a hard time a lot. And I said to myself recently, right, Jason, if you talk to yourself, if you was to talk to friends the way you talk to yourself, you would have no friends. So now I have to talk to myself the way I would talk to my friends. And that's kind of the way I try and, because sometimes we just do silly things, don't we? I used to say to myself, Jason, you idiot, you've done this once again. And I think, why am I talking to myself in this way with a lack of self-compassion?
You see, we're part of the team. We're part of the team. Minister Matthew Smith once said to me that when we're really hard on ourselves, we seem to be forgetting about the people in spirit. I wonder what it might make them feel like. That was a light bulb moment for me. And I thought, wow, that's a game changer. Because if I'm thinking to myself, well, that was no good, that was rubbish. Well, hang on a minute. They were working there, trying their best as well. And so what can I learn from this and what went well moving forward? Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Debs, for coming on to the Soul Sync podcast. It's been a really lovely conversation and it's been so good to have you here. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I've enjoyed it. Thanks.
If you do want to find out more about Debs, just go to the show notes where her website is there. You can check her out. And once again, thank you.
Thanks, Jason.